As someone who has spent more than 4 decades in the operating room, holding open hearts in my hands, I can tell you with absolute certainty that not all damage to the heart is caused by clogged arteries or years of poor eating. No. Sometimes the real danger comes from a much quieter source, something that hides inside your medicine cabinet, taken every day without question. You see, over the years I've had hundreds of older adults come into my clinic not because of chest pain after a greasy meal or breathlessness after climbing stairs, but simply because they felt tired, uneasy, or just off. Some of them were experiencing early signs of heart failure and had no idea why. And when we traced it back, it wasn't always lifestyle. It wasn't always stress. It was the medication they were taking. Not some rare or exotic drug, but pills prescribed to them years ago, sometimes for completely unrelated conditions like sleep issues, blood sugar, or joint pain. And that's the part that deeply concerns me. Many of these patients were in their 60s or 70s, had been taking the same pill for 10 or even 20 years. Their primary doctors meant well. The prescriptions made sense at the time. But as the body ages, its ability to process these medications changes. What once seemed harmless can gradually weaken the heart muscle, increase blood pressure, or disturb the electrical rhythm that keeps your heartbeat steady. What's worse, these pills often don't cause obvious side effects right away. You won't feel your heart cry out. There's no flashing red light on your chest. Instead, the damage creeps in slowly like rust, corroding a bridge you drive across every day. And by the time the signs become obvious, sometimes it's already too late. That's why I made this video. Not to scare you, but to inform you, because knowledge truly is power, especially when it comes to your heart. If you or someone you love is over 60 and currently taking medication for pain, blood sugar, sleep, or mood, then what I'm about to share could change the course of your health for years to come. I'm going to walk you through 7 medications, yes, 7 that I have personally seen contribute to heart failure, arrhythmias, and dangerously high blood pressure in my senior patients. And while I'm not here to tell you to stop taking anything without your doctor's guidance, I am here to say, you deserve to know the full picture. Pill number 1 is the most common and arguably the most dangerous, but we're going to start from the other end. I'll begin with pill number 7, and as we work our way up, you may find some very familiar names. I want you to listen carefully, not with fear, but with awareness. Because if there's one thing I've learned as a heart surgeon, it's this. The most powerful step in saving a heart is recognizing the quiet threats before they become deadly. So if you're ready, let's begin with the first of these hidden dangers and start protecting your heart, not just from disease, but from the very pills meant to help. Let me begin with something that might be sitting right now on your kitchen counter or in your bathroom drawer. A little bottle you reach for when your knees ache, your back flares up, or arthritis makes it hard to get out of bed in the morning. These are medications most people consider completely safe household names like ibuprofen or naproxen. They fall under a class of drugs called nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, or NSAIDs. And I cannot stress this enough. They may be quietly weakening your heart. Now, I'm not talking about taking 1 or 2 pills after you've pulled a muscle. I'm talking about long-term, regular use, something I see in many of my patients over the age of 60. When you live with chronic joint pain or arthritis, it's natural to reach for relief. You want to stay active, mobile, and independent. But here's the hidden price. NSAIDs work by reducing inflammation, yes, but they also interfere with prostaglandin substances in your body that help regulate blood flow, kidney function, and yes, heart muscle activity. By reducing these, NSAIDs can raise your blood pressure, cause your body to retain more fluid, and put extra strain on your cardiovascular system. In a younger, healthier heart, this might not be a big issue. But in an aging heart, perhaps one already battling mild hypertension or subtle arrhythmias, it's a different story. I've had patients who seemed stable 1 month and returned the next with unexplained swelling in their legs, irregular heartbeats, or shortness of breath. Their diets hadn't changed. Their exercise was steady. But they'd been taking over-the-counter NSAIDs every morning, just like they had for years. That's the danger. The effects build up slowly. The strain becomes chronic. And the heart, already working harder with age, starts to falter. What's even more concerning is how often NSAIDs slip under the radar in medical visits. Most seniors don't think to mention their Advil or Aleve when listing medications. After all, it's not a prescription, right? But these are powerful drugs. They alter kidney filtration. They influence blood pressure. They interact with heart medication, especially beta blockers and diuretics. And sometimes, they're the silent trigger behind a heart failure diagnosis that seems to come out of nowhere. Here's something I tell every patient who asks me about pain relief. Comfort should never come at the expense of your heart. There are safer alternatives. There are topical creams, physical therapy, even certain supplements that pose less risk to your cardiovascular system. But you need to have that conversation with your doctor. Don't let the label over-the-counter lull you into a false sense of safety. If you've been using NSAIDs for more than a few days, and especially if you're over 60, it's time to reassess. Don't wait until you're lying in an emergency room, wondering how your heart suddenly gave out. I've seen too many patients who thought they were doing the right thing managing their pain, staying active only, to discover that the very pill that got them through the day was quietly wearing down their heart from the inside. And the worst part? The damage is often blamed on getting older rather than the medication. But you're not just getting older. You're being affected by a drug that your body processes differently now. And once you understand that, you can take back control. We've just scratched the surface. The next medication on this list may be even more dangerous, especially if you or someone you love is living with type 2 diabetes. Let's keep going. Now let's talk about a medication that many seniors trust to control one of the most common conditions in aging, type 2 diabetes. If you're over 60 and managing blood sugar levels, chances are you've heard of or even taken a pill like pioglitazone. It belongs to a class of drugs called thiazolidinedinestrate, saying that 5 times fast. These medications were designed to make your body more sensitive to insulin. On paper, that's a good thing. Lower blood sugar, less insulin resistance, better diabetic control. But here's what most people don't realize. These drugs can quietly place enormous strain on your heart. You see, thiazolidinediones work by redistributing how fat is stored in your body and improving how your cells respond to insulin. But they also come with a significant downside. They cause your body to retain fluid. That may not sound dramatic, but for an aging cardiovascular system, it's a dangerous recipe. More fluid means more volume for the heart to pump, more pressure inside blood vessels. And for someone whose heart is already coping with decades of wear, that extra workload can push them into congestive heart failure even if their blood sugar looks fantastic on paper. I can't tell you how many seniors I've treated who had beautiful glucose numbers, but came in short of breath, swollen in the ankles, unable to lie flat without wheezing. And the link? They'd been on thiazolidinediones for months, sometimes years, without anyone questioning it. These medications are particularly risky because they mask the very symptoms they create. Fatigue? Blamed on aging. Shortness of breath? Attributed to being out of shape. Weight gain? Brushed off as part of the diabetic struggle. But beneath it all, their heart was drowning in silent overload. And here's another layer. Seniors with diabetes are already at high risk of heart disease. Their arteries are more vulnerable, their circulation less resilient. Adding a drug that amplifies fluid retention and burdens the heart is like pouring gasoline on a smoldering fire. You might not see the flames right away, but they're there and they'll erupt eventually if nothing changes. What deeply frustrates me is how often these medications are still prescribed out of habit. A doctor sees a high A1C, reaches for what's worked before, and never reevaluates the cost to the heart. But your health is not a number. It's not a lab result. It's how you feel, how you move, how your heart keeps you going without whispering a warning. If you've been prescribed a thiazolidinedione, especially if you've noticed swelling, weight gain, or a sense of breathlessness, it's time to speak up. Don't stop the medication on your own, never do that. But do ask your physician if there are safer options. There are newer diabetes treatments today that protect the heart, not stress it. Remember, your blood sugar is important, but your heart is the engine behind everything else. What good is a controlled glucose level if your heart is giving out? You deserve both: controlled diabetes and a strong, supported cardiovascular system. Next, we're going to take a look at something that affects nearly every senior I've ever met: trouble sleeping. And the solution many reach for may be doing more harm than good. Sleep is sacred. As we get older, a full night's rest becomes more than just a luxury, it becomes a battle. Many of my patients over the age of 60 confess to lying awake for hours, waking up too early, or never feeling truly rested. And in their search for sleep, they often turn to what seems like a simple solution: sleeping pills. Medications like Zolpidem, or even older sedatives like diazepam, promise quick, deep sleep. But what they don't mention on the bottle is how these drugs may be quietly sabotaging your heart night after night. Let me be clear. I understand the desperation that comes with chronic insomnia. I've seen patients so exhausted they can barely function. But sedative hypnotic drugs work by suppressing your central nervous system. They slow everything down: your brain, your breathing, and yes, your heart rate. That might sound like a good thing if you're anxious and wide awake, but the heart is not meant to be shut down. It's meant to respond, to adapt to your body's needs even while you sleep. When these medications blunt that responsiveness, they can lead to dangerous consequences. One of the most overlooked is the worsening of sleep apnea condition, where you stop breathing repeatedly during the night. These medications relax the muscles of the throat so much that your airway collapses more easily. And each time that happens, your heart gets less oxygen. Over time, the strain on your heart builds, especially in those already dealing with high blood pressure or arrhythmias. I've seen it lead to nighttime arrhythmias that spill into the day. And because these events happen while you're unconscious, they're often missed entirely until something serious occurs. But the danger doesn't end there. Sleeping pills also interact negatively with essential heart medications. Beta blockers, for instance, are meant to stabilize your heartbeat. Add a sedative on top of that, and you risk lowering your pulse too much. It's not uncommon for seniors to feel dizzy upon standing, or even faint, putting them at risk for falls and fractures. And while a broken bone heals, the damage to the heart can be far more complicated. Another hidden cost is cognitive decline. These medications affect your brain's natural sleep cycles, especially the deep restorative stages critical to memory and emotional health. Over time, dependence on sedatives can lead to confusion, forgetfulness, and even mimic early signs of dementia. That's not the future anyone wants, especially not for something as vital as sleep. I want you to know this. There are safer ways to improve your sleep. Natural supplements like melatonin, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, creating consistent bedtime routines. Even certain forms of physical activity, these approaches take more effort. Yes, but they don't cost you your heart health in the process. If you're already on a sedative hypnotic, don't panic, but do talk to your doctor about weaning off safely, especially if you've been using it for more than a few nights a week. We all deserve a good night's sleep, but not at the cost of our heart, our balance, or our mind. And now, let's move on to another class of medication often prescribed for mood, pain, or anxiety, especially in older adults. But the trade-off might be even greater than you imagined. Sometimes the most dangerous medications aren't the ones with complex names or bold warnings. They're the ones we see in our daily routines, quietly accepted as safe, because they've been around for decades. In this part, we'll explore 3 such medications. Each one is widely used. Each one serves a purpose. But in the context of aging hearts, they carry risks that are far too often overlooked. Let's begin with tricyclic antidepressants medications like amitriptyline or nortriptyline. These drugs were originally developed to treat depression, but over the years, doctors have prescribed them for everything from anxiety and insomnia to chronic pain and migraines. The problem? These medications alter the electrical conduction in your heart. They affect how signals travel from one part of the heart to another, signals that must stay precise to keep your rhythm steady. For someone under 40, this may not be a serious concern, but in a 65-year-old with a slower metabolism, possible arrhythmias, and other medications in the mix, it becomes a ticking time bomb. I've seen patients who experienced heart flutters, dizziness, and near-fainting spells all traced back to these seemingly harmless pills. And it's not just electrical activity. Tricyclics can also drop your blood pressure unexpectedly or cause it to spike at the wrong time. Combined with their sedative effects, this creates a dangerous combination: a slower heart, a confused brain, and a body that can't respond quickly to changes. The result? More falls, more ER visits, and sometimes cardiac events that are misattributed to just aging. If you're taking one of these medications and you notice even subtle signs: fatigue, irregular heartbeat, lightheadedness, don't dismiss them. Speak up. There are newer antidepressants today that are safer for older adults, with fewer cardiac risks and better tolerability. Next, let's talk about something that may surprise you: decongestants. When allergy season hits, or you catch a cold, you might reach for a pill containing pseudoephedrine or phenylephrine. These drugs are designed to reduce nasal swelling by constricting blood vessels. But they don't just act on your sinuses, they constrict blood vessels throughout your body, including those that feed your heart. This raises your blood pressure and makes your heart work harder. For someone in their 60s or 70s, already on antihypertensives or dealing with arrhythmias, that extra pressure can be dangerous. You might feel jittery, anxious, or short of breath after taking a decongestant. That's not just side effects. It's your heart trying to adapt to a sudden surge it didn't need. What worries me most is how readily available these medications are. No prescription needed, no pharmacist warning, and yet, their impact can be substantial. I've seen patients with perfect heart medication routines suddenly destabilized all because of a few days of cold medicine. That's why reading labels and talking to your doctor even about over-the-counter drugs is critical. Lastly, let's look at proton pump inhibitors, or PPIs. These are medications like omeprazole and pantoprazole, often taken for acid reflux or heartburn. Millions of Americans rely on them daily, sometimes for years. They seem benign, but long-term use has been linked to nutrient malabsorption, especially magnesium, which is essential for heart rhythm stability. Low magnesium can cause fatigue, palpitations, and even muscle weakness that mimics cardiac symptoms. In addition, PPIs may disrupt your gut microbiome, leading to chronic inflammation, a contributor to heart disease. The real issue? These drugs were never meant to be taken indefinitely, but many seniors are given repeat prescriptions year after year without reassessment. The body changes, absorption shifts, and what helped 10 years ago may now be causing silent damage. If you've been on PPIs for more than a few weeks, it's time to reassess with your doctor. Maybe your reflux can be managed with lifestyle changes, dietary adjustments, or intermittent therapy. The goal is to treat the root cause, not just silent symptoms at the expense of your heart. 3 drugs, 3 different purposes. But one common thread: when used long-term in older adults without careful monitoring, they can slowly erode the heart's resilience. You deserve better than that. You deserve medications that support your health, not silently undermine it. And that brings us to the final medication on this list. The one I consider most dangerous of all, because it's both common and insidious. Among all the medications I've discussed, this final one is perhaps the most common and the most quietly dangerous. Calcium channel blockers are a class of drugs prescribed for high blood pressure, chest pain, and irregular heart rhythms. You may recognize names like verapamil or diltiazem. They work by relaxing the blood vessels, allowing blood to flow more easily. Sounds beneficial, right? And it often, at least initially. But for older adults, especially those over 60, these medications can become a hidden hazard if not monitored closely. Here's why. As we age, our heart rate naturally slows. Our body's ability to adapt to changes in blood pressure becomes less efficient. Calcium channel blockers lower the heart rate even further. In younger patients, this might not pose a serious issue. But in an older adult whose heart is already functioning at a reduced capacity, it can lead to bradycardia, dangerously slow heartbeat. I've had patients come in complaining of unexplained fatigue, dizziness, or even fainting. Many had been on calcium channel blockers for years, assuming their symptoms were just part of getting older. But NSAIDs were side effects, not aging. Some forms of these medications also cause swelling in the legs, shortness of breath, and changes in heart rhythm that mimic heart failure. What's more concerning is how easily these signs are misattributed. A patient gains a few pounds of water, weight blamed on diet. They feel foggy, blamed on sleep. They move more slowly, blamed on age. Meanwhile, the heart is working harder and harder against the very drug meant to help it. Even more troubling is that many seniors take multiple medications, and calcium channel blockers can interact with them, especially drugs for cholesterol or arrhythmia. These interactions often go unnoticed unless a doctor is actively reviewing the entire medication list with age and cardiac sensitivity in mind. And that's the part that needs to change, not just the pills, but the conversation around them. Let me be absolutely clear. I am not saying these medications are inherently bad. In fact, when carefully prescribed and regularly monitored, they can be life-saving. But the key word here is monitored. Too many seniors are placed on these drugs and left there for years without reassessment. Their bodies change, their hearts age, but the prescription stays the same. That's the silent danger. So what can you do? First, pay attention. If you're on a calcium channel blocker and you feel slower, more swollen, more tired than usual, don't chalk it up to aging. Track your symptoms. Talk to your doctor. Ask if there's a newer, safer alternative for your specific condition. Second, never stop or change your medication without medical guidance. These drugs act on vital systems. You need a professional's help to adjust them safely. And finally, start using tools that empower you. Apps that track your meds, your symptoms, your pulse. Keep a log. Be your own advocate. Let me close with a simple truth I've seen again and again over the decades. Most seniors aren't harmed by their diseases. They're harmed by the way their medications are managed. Pills that once saved lives can become the very thing that shortens them when used without awareness. And in today's world, with all our technology and knowledge, there's no reason for that to happen. So if you or someone you love is taking any of the medications I've covered, NSAIDs, thiazolidinediones, sedatives, tricyclics, decongestants, PPIs, or calcium channel blocker SLET, this be your call to action. You don't need to panic, but you do need to ask questions. You need to demand clarity. You need to protect the most precious organ you have, your heart. Thank you for being here, for listening with an open mind. Please share this knowledge with someone you care about, because one conversation, one reassessment, could be the difference between a life slowly dimming and one that continues to shine with strength, awareness, and purpose.